Thank you for joining us for this special edition of To The Point. I'm Riley Benson. It's been 4 years since a Democrat last held office in South Carolina's 1st Congressional District. We spent the past hour introducing you to two men hoping to change that. Candidates Mac DeFord and Michael B. Moore went head-to-head tonight right here in our studio, making their final pushes to voters with just days until the primary election. Now we're hearing from each of those candidates about whether they think their performance tonight was enough to put them over the finish line. And we want to start with Mac DeFord. Mac, if you wouldn't mind joining us here on the debate stage. And Mac, thanks for joining us tonight. Let's talk about tonight's debate. Your biggest moments, how do you feel coming out of this debate?
I feel good. I mean, I think that the questions were good. These are things that are on people's minds here in the Low Country, and I think ultimately people got an opportunity to see what my platform is, and they got a chance to see my opponent's platform, and ultimately they'll make that decision on June 11th at the polls.
Which of the topics did you feel strongly about? Where do you think you really succeeded in your biggest moment tonight?
Well, I think, you know, again, going back to what I said during the debate, that the first thing that the 119th Congress must do is codify women's reproductive rights, and that includes the right to access an abortion. And so I think that, you know, telling the story about my maternal grandmother, it's not something that I enjoy doing, but I think people need to hear that, because at the end of the day, folks need to understand the serious repercussions that these extreme abortion bans have on families and women.
You know, we covered so many topics in a short amount of time. We had about a minute to answer each question. So is there a topic that you would like to elaborate more on that you felt like you didn't have enough time during that debate to speak about?
Well, I think, look, we can go, I can spend all night talking about every one of those topics. I will say when it comes to certain bills, I think that Nancy Mace has voted against or legislation that she has supported, I think that people need to hold her accountable. So, for example, Nancy Mace, when she was a state house representative, she voted for a near total abortion ban, very similar to what is the law here in South Carolina today. She's also voted against legislation that would protect our communities, voted against legislation that would better fund our law enforcement to respond to mental health and suicidal crises. So these are all things that people need to hold her accountable for, and I think it's important that people really examine her voting record. You
know, obviously these formats are an opportunity for the two candidates, you and Michael B. Moore, to kind of separate yourselves on these issues and speak to voters. Do you think that you had a chance to separate and deliver that message to voters tonight?
I do. You know, I think that my opponent and I, there's probably little we disagree on policy-wise other than term limits. But I will say that, look, my background is in public service. I enlisted in the U.S. Coast Guard straight out of high school. I served in our local communities and local government as an attorney, top legal advisor for some of our municipalities here in the Low Country. And so I think that at the end of the day, people are looking for more public servants in office, and they're looking for less reality TV stars up there in Washington.
You know, recent polling is showing there is a ton of undecided voters in this election for Democratic primary voters. Do you think you were able to reach out and speak to those undecided voters to pull them to your side as we were just days from Election Day?
Well, ultimately, again, voters will decide that at the polls. I will say, though, that this year we have been outperforming our opponent by many metrics. We've outraised them by over 20%, and in the last filing period by 2 to 1. So our campaign has gained a lot of momentum, and this momentum is going to take us through the primary and into November, and we will flip this seat.
Well, like I mentioned, just days until Election Day. What's your final message as you speak to voters? Obviously, the last day of early voting is tomorrow, Election Day on Tuesday. Yeah,
I will just say to voters that, look, vote your conscience, but people are looking for somebody who's going to serve them with integrity, somebody that they can look at when they're up there in Washington at a committee hearing, that they're not talking about, you know, somebody's, you know, private parts, that they can actually be proud of in what they're advocating for. And I stand for what I stand for. I'm running to be a congressman for all South Carolinians here in the 1st Congressional District, and that does not, you know, limit my representation of people. It's regardless of political ideology.
All right. Mr. Ford, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to switch out candidates. Michael B. Moore is going to join us in a second. Again, if you're just joining us, we have a poll over on our website where you can tune in and give your opinion on who you think won tonight's debate. All right. Michael B. Moore is going to join us here on the debate stage, fresh out of tonight's debate. Mr. Moore, thank you so much for your time. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here.
Let's talk about tonight's debate. What do you think was your biggest moment, your most successful moment tonight?
I don't know. Look, I tried. There are a lot of issues that need attention in Washington. I think first, people need to understand who can win, and I think I tried to articulate the fact that I'm best positioned to pull together the broadest and deepest coalition of voters within the Democrats, but also independents and moderate Republicans. I talked about my 40-year career of experience, 25 of those leading companies and organizations. I think that matters. Experience matters. You know, I appreciated the opportunity to talk about the issues. I had an opportunity to talk about women's reproductive freedom. We are gaining really enormous traction from women. Just last month, a group of about 100 women came together and creating a Women for More group that was just lively and supportive of our efforts to support them in issues that they care about. So, you know, I think, you know, it's difficult to touch on one particular issue. There, unfortunately, are so many.
And you mentioned that a lot of topics in a short amount of time to address each of them. Is there a topic or something that you wanted to address more that we could do so now? Is there something you'd like to speak on longer?
Well, look, I think in a lot of ways, what at least Democrat voters are thinking about right now is who can win in November. And so, if anything, I just underscore the point that it's going to take getting voters out, and we are out exciting voters and inspiring them in many kinds of ways. I talked about kind of the breakdown of within the Democratic group. I talked about voters of color. It's going to be important that we inspire them and get them out to vote in perhaps unforeseen numbers than in the past. I think women are really going to be very important. They are pissed off for good reason, having lost bodily autonomy around their health care issues, and they're looking to focus their energy in important ways. You know, I think young people are going to be important. They say Gen Z is going to be the most politically active group of them all, and we've got a group of 20-some campaign fellows, like interns, out talking to other young people on platforms where they are about issues that they really care about. That's going to be important. And then, you know, look, the fact that Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump in the district, I think does prove that there's a larger group of moderate Republicans who are rejecting the MAGA kind of end of things. And by the way, Nancy Mace has done her best to align herself with that wing of the party. So I think those folks who typically are business-oriented folks, I think they will align with my business background. So we feel really good about our ability to pull together this broad coalition. I've had to work across the aisle in a number of instances, and helping to lead the International African American Museum. We had to raise a lot of money from a very Republican General Assembly, and so, you know, we're feeling good about what we've done.
You know, some polling is showing that there's a lot of undecided voters in the Democratic primary next week. So, you know, do you think tonight your message reached those undecided voters who are still on the fence about who they'd like to vote for in this primary?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I've been campaigning full-time for over a year and a half almost now, and this is probably the greatest number of people who will have had an opportunity to hear me and to get a sense of what I stand for. So I think it's, you know, every month we keep building on the accomplishments of the months prior. We've got enormous amounts of just momentum, whether it's getting endorsements from important groups. Just last night, the City paper endorsed us. I feel grateful about that. You know, elected officials and faith leaders have come to endorse us, and that's been great. So, you know, we're just continuing on. We're going to sprint through the finish, and you know, look forward to taking on Nancy Mace or whomever comes out of the right. All
right, Mr. Moore, thank you so much for your time. Certainly appreciate it. All right. Again, if you watch tonight's debate, you can head to our website. You can tune in on who you think won tonight's debate. I want to welcome in our stars, Carolyn Murray and Ben Sanger, who were tonight's moderators of the debate. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about, Carolyn, come right here in the middle if you don't mind.
Okay.
So as tonight's moderators, you know, a lot of time and effort went into crafting these questions for these two candidates. Talk to me about what you guys thought was the biggest moment tonight, and were there any surprises from these two? And Carolyn, if you want to start.
Well, certainly we appreciate this opportunity. One of the candidates described this as a public service, and that's exactly what we think this is. This is our opportunity to allow these candidates and every candidate to have their say, to explain to the voters why they believe they should be elected. I think there were a lot of very big moments. I actually was surprised that there weren't more. I think we may have anticipated a little more sparring between the candidates, but I believe that they effectively were able to make their platforms known, to clearly state why they believe they should represent this district.
You know, Ben, we were talking a little bit about how these two candidates really haven't made their way down to Beaufort, to Hilton Head as much as we may have seen them up here in Charleston. Do you think their message resonated with voters down in Hilton Head in Beaufort County tonight?
I do think so. I think they brought up several of the key issues that people are talking about down there in terms of infrastructure and preserving certain environments and cultures, and I think that's very important to folks down there. I think it's a symbol numbers game. That tends to be a redder area of the district. You certainly have more Democrats as farther north you go. I know, one of the things that's kind of interesting for me as well is that, when we prepare for some of the things that we think may happen. And in this case, there were maybe a few accusations that have been leveled that I won't go into here because they didn't bring them up tonight. So I'm also curious of what your thoughts are about the fact that we didn't hear some of the accusations we prepared to hear tonight.
Well, it's always good to over-prepare, right? I think, they kept it professional. And I think that's what most people want to see in politics today, right? Respect, it's professional. I don't know, people really want to see others taking shots at people over things that are 10 to 15 years old. I think you really resonate maybe with voters when you're respectful and you are just respecting each person. Carolyn, what do you think on this topic?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think we certainly did our very best to prepare for what we would see on the stage tonight. One of the things that I thought was interesting, we had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with the candidates before we actually came on air, and they talked about the amount of time that they've been in each other's physical presence. They said several dozen times. They've actually been on platforms. They've been a part of debates and conversations in their communities. So they actually could pretty clearly and reasonably anticipate what the other would say. So they've spent a lot of time around each other. So I think that a lot of what we saw on this stage tonight is because these are two people who know what the other is going to say, because frankly, they've heard it probably 100 times already.
Right, and I want to ask both of you, because we talk about undecided voters. There's a number of voters in this Democratic primary who are undecided between Michael B. Moore or Mac DeFord. Do you think they were able to separate themselves tonight? I asked that question to them. You guys got to hear their responses, but I'm curious for your take. And Carolyn, if you want to start.
Well, I think they sound very similar.
Right.
And we were probably anticipating or hoping perhaps that there would be some questions that we asked that would allow them to really differentiate themselves, to show how they stand apart from the other candidate, and they still sound very similar in a lot of ways. Of course, there's still early voting tomorrow. We've got the weekend to figure some things out, and then of course primary day is Tuesday. So they still have a few more days to kind of say, this is how I differ from this candidate and this is why I'm the better candidate for SC-01.
Right. Ben?
Yeah, not sure if there was any real break in sort of what some of their stances are. So I think it might just come down to personality. Okay, who do I maybe jive with better, or whose resume from the past do I think will better equip them to do this job? So those are kind of, I don't know if they gave us any help and going beyond personality and resume.
All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Certainly appreciate you joining a special edition of To The Point. We do want to let you know that WCBD is conducting a post-debate poll to get your opinion on who won tonight's debate. You could participate by heading to our website, that's counton2.com. On behalf of WCBD, WSAV, Ben Sanger, Carolyn Murray, Brendan Clark, and myself, we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. It's all the time we have, but you can tune in to WCBD News 2 at 10 and 11 and WSAV tonight as well for a recap of tonight's debate. Remember, early voting ends tomorrow. The primary election is on Tuesday. Have a great night.